All right. Let's see. Got to get my windows up. Redonk, you here? MAGA, if you're here, I'm glad you got your shirt. I hope you like it. Let's see. Where did I put the damn window this time? My windows are always escaping. Tonight we're going to talk about something that's a little bit on the controversial side. That never happens on this show. We never approach topics that may or may not get you taken off the YouTube channel. I don't think this one should. I think this one should obviously be talked about openly. And I think that I started doing this and the podcast that I was doing before this. I did it to learn about things. Sorry about your ads, Redonk. That's the only way I can make money, and you guys are saving my ginger lifestyle by paying for those ads. Good job. But I started the podcast that I did with my wife to, it was called Let's Talk About, because we would talk about things and sometimes we wouldn't fully understand the entirety of what we were talking about, and sometimes those conversations can lead to a lot of I think and I feel, and I think that I think and I feel are terrible metrics when discussing important topics. I think that the words I think and I feel lead to a lot of things, a lot of roundabout talk that has no basis in actual fact. So I have noticed lately or read lately about Zooey Zephyr. I'm sure many people have. She is the transgender politician in Montana, the first transgender politician that has been elected in Montana. And she has been silenced, and we'll get into that for the reasoning of that, but she has been silenced, and, you know, the transgender topic is a very sensitive topic and can be also very complicated. And so tonight I wanted to look into a bit about transgenderism, about transgender people, and I wanted to talk about some of my favorite history, and that is the Sacred Band. Anybody that knows who Alexander the Great is and understands the Sacred Band will know what I'm talking about when I say that when people say things along the lines of, all of a sudden there's gay and transgender people everywhere, they clearly do not understand history. And that is that homosexuality as well as transgenderism goes back a long, long time. And anybody that thinks that it hasn't is ignorant, 100% ignorant. And so I wanted to get into that. I wanted to talk about it. So let's talk a little about who Zooey Zephyr is. And I hope I'm saying that right. Zoe, it's got two O's in it. I'm from the trailer park. I'm not good at reading. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about who Zooey Zephyr is. Zooey Zephyr was born August 29, 1988, an American politician and university administrator who represents Missoula in the 100th District in the Montana House of Representatives, a member of the Democratic Party, of course. She was elected in the 2022 election, making her the first openly transgender person to be elected to the state legislature in Montana. She was sworn in as a representative on January 2nd, 2023. Zephyr was born in Billings, Montana. She graduated from the University of Washington in 2011 with a dual Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration and Creative Writing. Under the name Cascom, Zephyr was a competitive Super Smash Bros. Video game player. So, yeah, it's not phonetic. Thank you, Redonk. Super Smash Brothers video game player. That alone right there makes me a fan of Zoe, okay? I am now a fan of Zoe because she was a competitive Super Smash Brothers player, and that's what we need more in legislature right now. People that can, you know, whoop somebody's ass with that big pink puffball, Kirby. She made the top 8 at the Northwest Majors in Des Moines, Washington. Damn right, top 10. Zephyr subsequently returned to her home state to pursue graduate studies at the University of Montana. She joined the university's biology department and then the office of the provost, where she worked as a program manager overseeing the university's curricula. Falco Punch! That's right. And Strider. Isn't Strider in that game? God, I love me some Strider. Zephyr became involved in activism in 2020. She testified before the Montana legislature in defense of LGBT plus rights and met with Republican Governor Greg Gianforte, but felt her words were not heard. Yeah, I'd imagine. Having watched bills that were opposed to the rights of transgender people pass with one vote margins, such as legislation making it difficult for transgender people to update birth certificates, she felt she needed to get in the room where the laws were being written. And this is greatly underestimated, or maybe it's understated, is that if people want to get things changed, you got to be active, and we say that. And then when people get involved, we get upset that they got involved because then all of a sudden you don't like their opinions. Well, this person obviously saw a problem and got involved, and in doing so, got censored for it. Got told that nobody wanted to hear their opinion. We're going to get to that in a second. She was previously followed by Andrea Olson, who stood down to run for state senator. Zephyr defeated David Severson in the Democratic primary. Upon defeating Republican opponent Sean Patrick McCoy that November, Zephyr became the first trans woman to be elected to the Montana legislature alongside S.J. Howell, the first non-binary person to be elected. When people say things like, oh, all of a sudden there's these transgender people and all of a sudden there's non-binary people. Nope, they've always existed. It's just that, obviously we're becoming better at, terming who is non-binary, who is transgender. And they're actually able to, with the right protections, come out and say that's who they are. And that's who they choose to be, because that's what best represents them. So, I hate to hear when people say, oh, all of a sudden these people, no, it's not all of a sudden. Zephyr has been a vocal opponent of the multiple anti-LGBT plus bills introduced during the 2023 legislative session. I'm just going to mess up legislative a million times. During a floor debate on April 18, 2023, Zephyr admonished those who supported the Senate Bill 99, which prohibits gender-affirming medical and surgical care for transgender minors. She first commented, if you're forcing a trans child to go through puberty when they are trans, this is tantamount to torture, and this body should be ashamed. When this remark triggered an objection from Republican Majority Leader Sue Vinton, Zephyr replied, the only thing I will say is if you vote yes on this bill and yes on these amendments, I hope the next time there's an invocation when you bow your heads in prayer, you see the blood on your hands. Now, this is this person's opinion. They are representing the 100th District of Missoula, and they're representing their constituents who obviously voted for a transgender person, therefore are asking for a transgender voice. So in doing this, I don't see where there's a problem with this person speaking out against a bill. In fact, I think that that's rather democratic of Zooey to do so. That is the process in which we create our laws. Let's see. The only thing... Okay, so this prompted backlash from House Republicans. The Montana Freedom Caucus, really, issued a statement misgendering Zephyr and calling for her censure. So... this whole thing is based on decorum, this whole reason that they're censoring this person, and then they misgender Zooey in the very thing that they put out, the very statement that they put out. It's like, this isn't about decorum to you then. Because if this was about decorum, then you wouldn't have misgendered this person. That's insanity, and it's the pot calling the kettle black. You can't sit there and say... this other person is not observing decorum and then misgender them intentionally. It was intentional in the statement to ask for her censure. Zephyr stood by her words. They asked her to apologize, just so you guys know, and she said no. Zephyr stood by her words, and House Minority Leader Kim Abbott defended her, describing the statement as blatantly disrespectful and the farthest thing imaginable from the commitment to civil discourse that these letter writers demand. Thereafter, Speaker Matt Riger refused to let Zephyr speak on any bills, despite no censure having taken place. So once again, you're talking about a person that you may disagree with their political opinions, but that's their job. They're there to speak on their political opinions, and they did so. And when they did so, not only were they not actually censured, but they were not allowed to speak anymore, therefore silencing the entire 100th district of Missoula. And that's first of all, that's undemocratic. That is completely against the democratic process. This is much like what happened with the two young black men in Tennessee, where they attempted to speak for the people and were shot down for doing so, and not only shot down, but then were removed from their office, which, funny enough, they got reinstated. And yeah, that's an awkward time for all those people, isn't it? And that's good. I'm glad that they feel awkward. I'm glad that those two young black men are making a bunch of people that felt so secure in their jobs, felt so righteous in their hate, now feel awkward. It's good for them. It builds character. On April 24th, about 100 people gathered at a rally in support of Zephyr, prompting heavy police presence, of course. That afternoon, Zephyr was again denied speaking privileges, prompting every present Democratic lawmaker to stand in protest. All but 2 Republican members of the chamber's supermajority voted to uphold Regier's ruling. Protesters in the House gallery then began chanting, "Let her speak," resulting in a half-hour delay in proceedings as riot police were brought in to clear the gallery. Most Democratic legislatures remained in the House chambers, mostly in the wings, but Republican lawmakers evacuated the room. Josh Hawley, these are your people. Zephyr remained at her desk on the floor, silently holding aloft a microphone. 7 people were arrested and after booking were released without needing to post bail. Afterwards, members of the conservative Montana Freedom Caucus accused Zephyr of standing in the middle of the floor, encouraging insurrection. It's not an insurrection. If you want to look up the word insurrection, please do so. It does not mean what you think it means. An insurrection is not peaceful. An insurrection is not 100 people chanting, "Let her speak," while one transgender person, the very epitome of a minority, stands in the middle of the place that they work, the place where they're supposed to be, helping to establish rules and laws that forward our democracy. That's not insurrection. It's not insurrection. And you can stop trying to take the power from the word insurrection, because you guys did a bunch of dumb shit on January 6th that actually was an insurrection, that actually did inhibit the electoral certification of your president. That's insurrection. So please stop. That's just absolutely ridiculous. So anyways, this is who Zooey Zephyr is. Zooey Zephyr has now sued the legislature in Montana to be allowed back on the floor. Lost that, not because of the fact that she didn't have a case, but because unfortunately, or fortunately, if you look at it in the way that it's the democratic process, that the judicial and the legislature are meant to be kept separately. So she didn't lose that because she didn't have a case. She lost it because really there should be a separation of the judicial, the executive, and the legislative. So that should not be misconstrued. What I wanted to watch first here is, like I said, because this is very important. It's about educating myself, because I readily admit that I am not 100% educated on what makes a person transgender, or what it entails. I did grow up with a lot of gay men relatives. I did, 37 years ago, know a transgender man that was transitioning to a woman. And, that's just one more reason for me to say, when people say this is just now happening, oh my God, all these people are transgender. No, it's not. Literally 37 years ago, I knew a man that was transitioning to a woman. And even back then, that person was a good part of my life. And at no point did they groom me. Obviously, I am a bald, old, white man with 2 kids. So, it was not groomed. That person was nothing but a positive influence in my life, as many homosexual males have been positive influences in my life. Turns out I never went gay. It's crazy, right? So what I wanted to watch first here it's a video called "The Science of Being Transgender," featuring Gigi Gorgeous, which is a great name. And we're going to watch this because it gives us a little bit of a scientific explanation for what exactly makes a person transgender.
There's information out there about what it means to be transgender, but recently scientists have begun to look more closely into the neurology, physiology, and psychology behind it.
So today we're going to break down what science does know in a respectful and educational way. Hey guys, I'm Gigi Gorgeous, and today I'm here with ASAP Science to break down the science of being transgender. Before we get too deep into it, we have to look at your genetic sex, or the chromosomes you have. These were determined right at fertilization, when the sperm cell from your father, which carries an X or a Y chromosome, fused with the egg from your mother, which carries an X chromosome.
But until 6 or 7 weeks after fertilization, both XY and XX embryos have identical gonads. Around 7 weeks, the male sex organs start to develop because of a gene on the Y chromosome called SRY. It causes cells to become more specialized, and these cells create testosterone, which in turn triggers the development of structures like the penis and scrotum, while other cells block.
Okay, and I'm pausing it here. It's probably a bad idea. I just like that it's called the sorry gene. All right. I don't know. That's just funny to me. The sorry gene.
Female development by degenerating the female ducts. However, in female development, because there is no Y chromosome with the SRY gene, these ducts stay intact and become the uterus, cervix, upper vagina, and the oviduct with the help of estrogen and chemicals secreted by the early kidney. But it's not always that simple. There are sometimes even rare combinations like XXY, XXX, XXYY, etc., and even people with XX chromosomes that develop male genitals and characteristics due to a piece of the Y chromosome breaking off and switching places to an X chromosome.
But sexual differentiation in the brain actually happens much later than gonadal differentiation. And yes, although controversial, male and female brains have structural and functional differences between each other. Studies have found that males generally have a larger cerebrum, cerebellum, and hippocampus, while females have higher density left frontal lobes and larger volumes in the right frontal lobes. So what exactly do we see when we look at the brain of a transgender person? Several studies have shown that transgender brains are both structurally and functionally more similar to their experienced gender identity than their biological sex.
One study found that trans women who, despite being assigned male at birth, had a smaller female-sized structure in the hypothalamus. MRI scans also show the brain structures of trans people to be more similar in thickness to their experienced gender and not their sex. Finally, the pheromone androstenedione causes different hypothalamic responses in male and female brains. And when individuals with gender dysphoria were exposed to it, the hypothalamic response matched their perceived gender rather than their sex. These studies help to highlight how masculinization or feminization of the gonads is not always the same as the brain, and that there's a difference between your sex or your anatomy and your gender or how we perceive our own bodies. There also seems to be a genetic component to transgender identity. Looking at family histories, gender identity incongruence seems to run in the family, meaning they may be inherited. The CYP17 gene, which controls the body's level of sex hormones, has a changed allele that is expressed frequently in trans men. Although more research could be done, scientists are currently looking at over 3 million DNA markers for transgender identity to investigate any genetic link for being trans.
Even though scientific studies validate the experience of transgender people, they're still suffering from more depression and anxiety than the general public. The risk of suicide is more prominent in transgender people who have been rejected by their family, discriminated in the workplace, or in healthcare. Suicide risks seem to decrease after gender transitioning, suggesting that gender dysphoria can cause an extreme amount of emotional pain, even to the point of suicide. If you, a family member, or a friend is suffering from gender dysphoria, there are a few links in the description for more information.
Thank you so much, Gigi, for being part of this video. It means so much, and we're happy that you're here to do this with us.
Oh, well, thank you guys for using your channel, your platform, validating transgender experiences with science, which just brings us closer to equality.
Absolutely. If you guys want to check out Gigi's channel, we'll put links in the description or on the screen somewhere. Otherwise, you can subscribe for more science here every week, and we'll see you next time. Peace.
So, you know, one of the things about that video is if it seemed a little bit complicated, well, that's because human beings are extremely complicated. It's almost as though you can't just say everything that has happened in life is because some gigantic, imaginary, all-powerful creator has made it so simple to understand. Because it isn't. It's actually all very complicated, and oftentimes it's actually acceptable to say, I don't know. So when someone tells you that they feel a certain way about themselves, and they're more in touch with them, you know, and they're more in touch with who they are, then you might need to just accept that you don't know. You might need to accept that the human body is extremely complicated and that at times things happen in our body that we have absolutely no explanation for because we're ignorant to why it is that way. So things like science, obviously, are a great tool to explain things to people like myself who aren't educated on the subject matter, because it makes me feel as though I can see a little bit of the textbook for what is happening. I once read a book, it was called The Happiness Hypothesis, and it's by, oh God, if I could remember his name right now. Anyways, he's Jonathan Haidt, a social psychologist. And it was one of the best books I've ever read, because there's a bit of fantasy that goes on when we talk about our emotions and happiness and love, and there's mysticism. And what it did for me, it helped explain exactly how the brain works when it comes to emotions. It explained reward systems, it explained anger, hate, disgust, and it really broke it down to the evolutionary science of why you feel these ways. And it was important because it helped me to understand what made me angry, what made me happy, what I could do in my life to motivate myself to do more things like make YouTube videos, or to say, I don't know, and maybe I should get off my ass and look on the internet and see if I can figure out what I don't know and maybe educate myself so that way the next time I wanted to talk about it, I didn't sound like a complete fucking idiot. And I think that what we tend to do nowadays is we tend to say things. I saw, for example, a rapper named Zooey. If you know who Zooey is, Zooey was best known for when this whole kind of, transgenders in sports thing started, decided that he would pull a stunt where he identified as a woman and broke the world record for powerlifting in a women's competition. Now, obviously, the point that was made there was well made, but he's kind of gone off the rails a little bit since then. And I saw him say the other day something along the lines of, most people that say they're depressed are not clinically depressed. Now, he's received a lot of backlash from that because you're saying that from intuition. You're saying that I think that most people that say they're depressed aren't clinically depressed. Well, that's easy to say, but it's not factual in any way. You're not quoting studies. You're not actually educating yourself to the material. You're saying in my anecdotal experience, most people that I meet that say they're depressed aren't clinically depressed. Well, you're not a psychologist, so that's the start of that. And also, you can't possibly say that the entirety of people that say they're depressed aren't clinically depressed, as that's almost unknowable. So what I like to think about when I'm doing these things is that I want to know the things that I don't. I want to extinguish the ignorance that I possess. And there's no way that I can do that completely, but I can definitely get to a point where I can start to speak a little more eloquently about a subject and attempt to have a voice. So, as I said before, and thank you guys for listening to my diatribe. I know this is a little different than what I usually do, but this seemed like it was very important, and I really look towards the young people that are coming up through the business that I manage, and at the young people that I see being affected in the news, and I think that it's important to, at times, though I like to be humorous and have fun, also spend some time talking about things that are very serious and are important to the progression of not only the United States, but the world in general. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of Alexander the Great. And one of the things that happened with Alexander the Great was in Greece, which was known for a certain homosexuality, is that there was I believe there a group in Thebes, and we'll watch this video right now, a group in Thebes called the Sacred Band. And the Sacred Band, in many ways, people don't know about the Sacred Band because it was a completely homosexual band of Theban soldiers that, I'll let the video speak for itself. It's actually very interesting stuff.
Central Greece, 371 BCE. Thebes and Sparta march to war. After years as a client kingdom, Thebans have had enough of their tyrannical Spartan masters. They choose to fight for their independence. But Sparta is a formidable opponent, fielding unparalleled heavy infantry. Thebes has fought beside these troops and know what they can do. So the Thebans march to battle with a secret weapon. 300 elite warriors, handpicked for their martial skill and valor. A group that is trained day and night to face up against the Spartan phalanx. They are called the Sacred Band, one of the greatest units ever to deploy in Greek warfare. Oh, and I forgot to mention, they were all super gay. Happy Pride, everyone! This month we're raising money for the Trevor Project over on our Twitch channel. Stay tuned until after the episode to learn more. Politics in Ancient Greece was a Game of Thrones style series of alliances, betrayals, regime changes, and wars. And for a very long time, the major players of the game were Athens and Sparta. But while those great nations duked it out, Thebes was waiting quietly in the wings for its own shot at glory. During the Peloponnesian War, Sparta overpowered Athens and established itself as the dominant power in Greece. And seeing an opportunity, Thebes decided to side with the Spartans. But as Sparta grew more powerful in the region, Thebes became increasingly nervous about their neighbor because they were supposed to be an ally, a junior partner. But Sparta began acting as if Thebes were its vassal. And the final straw came when Spartan forces moseyed on in and occupied a Theban citadel. While all this was happening, a citizen of Thebes named Pelopidas was coming into his own.
I'm glad he said that name, not me.
Though hailing from a wealthy family, he was by all accounts obsessed with living no better than the poorest Theban citizen, putting himself through grueling military exercises and using his vast fortune to benefit the poor. And having sacrificed so much for his homeland, he was not going to allow Sparta to take any more. So, he rallied all of his friends and allies and waited until the night of a party, where all of these Spartan supporters in Thebes were most assuredly gonna be getting wasted. Sneaking inside under the cover of darkness, with some of them dressed up as women to help infiltrate the gathering, they pulled out daggers and in a few blood-soaked minutes, assassinated every single adversary.
I just like that they, even back then, we just dressed up as women to do this shit. It goes way back.
With that done, by morning, the Theban people rallied around Pelopidas and forced the Spartans occupying the citadel to surrender and leave. Thebes got its citadel back, which was good. But now they were at war with the greatest military power in all of Greece, which was bad. They needed good soldiers, and fast. To fill that need, Pelopidas created one of the coolest armies you might never have heard of, the Sacred Band. See, in the first half of the 4th century, no Greek power beside the Spartans had full-time professional soldiers. Armies, when called, were made up of citizen soldiers. And then once wars were over, the soldiers went back to their day jobs and carried on life as private citizens. And also, because armor was prohibitively expensive for the average Greek, the gear used by these soldiers was passed down as family heirlooms, from father to son, uncle to nephew. Only the Spartans lived and trained as warriors year-round. So to prepare for war with Sparta, around 378 BCE, Pelopidas recruited 300 of the best, most promising young Theban men to form a professional unit. They were selected on merit alone, without regard of wealth, social status, or rank. Highly trained in the military arts, they served Thebes as a standing army to protect against foreign invaders, and to be deployed as shock troops to bolster the non-professional units in battle. And like so many other good things, the warriors of the Sacred Band came in pairs, consisting of an older, more experienced lover and his favorite companion, the beloved. And this pair of lovers would live, train, sleep, and fight together. And we're not exactly sure what motivated the founder of the Sacred Band to structure the army this way, but there are several theories. First, they may have been inspired by the folk hero Aeolus, a lover of Hercules, who had a shrine dedicated to him in Thebes. Male couples would regularly go there to worship and make vows to one another. And
I know this would trigger the shit out of some Republicans nowadays, because that's like the very picture. It's Hercules. He's the most manliest of men. Well, he did some shit too, bro.
Second, erotic love had long been associated with greatness and military prowess in the classical world. Several classical thinkers even wrote about the advantages of going to war with a loved one. In fact, intimate relationships between older and younger men were an integral part of Spartan military training. Though unlike the Sacred Band, these pairs did not fight in the same unit. Describing the Sacred Band, the historian Plutarch wrote, "A band which is united by the ties of love is truly indissoluble and unbreakable, since both lover and beloved are ashamed of being disgraced in the presence of each other, and each stands his ground at a moment of danger to protect one another. Also, the philosopher Plato wrote, "No man is such a craven that love cannot inspire him with a courage to make him equal to the bravest born." And now more than ever, Thebes was in need of that kind of courage, because it was time to take the fight to Sparta. With Pelopidas at the helm, the Sacred Band deployed for its first battle as a solo unit. A Spartan garrison had recently left a nearby city, and Pelopidas hoped to reclaim that city while it sat empty of Spartan forces. But when the Sacred Band arrived, they found the initial reports were false, and that the Spartans had already reinforced the city. It was too risky to engage, so Pelopidas and the Sacred Band retreated back to Thebes. But on their way back, they ran into the returning Spartan forces near a shrine of Apollo. The Spartans outnumbered the Thebans at least 2-1, and upon seeing the vast enemy army, a Theban turned to Pelopidas in despair. "We have fallen into our enemy's hands," the man said. But Pelopidas was unfazed, replying, "And why not they into ours?" Then he ordered the cavalry to charge the Spartan backline, while he commanded the Sacred Band in front. Confident in their numbers, the Spartans advanced, only to be quickly scattered by the Theban forces. Their commanders fell early in the battle, and lacking leadership, the Spartan forces were routed. The Thebans stripped the dead of their arms, built a trophy on the site of their victory, and returned home. This was the only time in known history that the Spartans lost to a smaller force. Actually, the Spartans had never lost a battle against an equal force before, and the Sacred Band's stunning debut shook the Spartan image. 4 years and many battles later, Thebes had established itself as a democracy and freed the cities of central Greece from Spartan control. Pelopidas had been elected along with 6 other leaders, all of whom working tirelessly to re-establish the government Sparta had disbanded. Then eventually, wary from war, Athens and most other Greek cities agreed to make peace. But the Spartans would not make it that easy. For when the time came to sign the treaty, they refused to recognize the new government's authority over Boeotia. The Thebans, outraged, returned to the battlefield to settle things once and for all. Again, the Theban forces were outnumbered, this time 3-2. And despite their loss at the Shrine of Apollo, the Spartans were still the most renowned troops of their time. And from past battles, the Theban commander knew 2 things to expect: that the Spartan cavalry were their weakest units, and that their best troops were always on the right flank. Now, the assumption was that the Thebans would do the same as was tradition, leaving the elite troops far apart, hoping to whittle down each other's less well-trained troops in the center until the other army broke. But the Thebans decided to shake things up a bit. They placed their strongest forces on the left wing, trusting that their own elite warriors could beat the best of Sparta and break the core of the enemy army. And to complete this task, they yet again deployed the Sacred Band. The lines joined, javelins flew, spearheads scraped on painted shield. Thebes smashed the Spartan cavalry with their superior mounted troops, and the Sacred Band, led again by Pelopidas, charged.
Hold on. Is that a horse on top of a horse? What was that? That was definitely a horse on top of a horse. I don't think that that's a verifiable military tactic.
Cavalry with their superior mounted troops, and the Sacred Band, led again by Pelopidas, charged and wiped out the Spartans' entire right flank. Although they fought long and hard, this innovation in fighting techniques caused the Spartans to face the greatest loss they had ever known. And with this momentous defeat, it was now finally Thebes' turn to shine. However, Theban superiority would be short-lived. Pelopidas died in battle not long after defeating Sparta, after which Theban power crumbled and Greece was once again divided. But the Sacred Band held out for a few more decades, until Philip II of Macedon, Alexander the Great's father, defeated them in 338 BCE. But rather than surrender, every last one of the Sacred Band fought to the death together. And as he watched, Philip wept at the sight. As history lovers, the Sacred Band is important because it shakes up the image of ancient warfare presented by popular movies and television, reminding us that classical Greece had different interpretations of masculine and feminine, and what relationships between men looked like. So when you think of the 300 Spartans at Thermopylae, remember also the 300 of the Sacred Band, standing by each other, even to death, not just for duty, but for love. And speaking of standing up for love and fighting for what you believe in, this month all of us at Extra Credits are raising money for the Trevor Project, a nonprofit that supports LGBTQ youth. And you can...
Unfortunately, you guys can't help with that because it was 2 years ago. My point in showing this is I read this about Alexander the Great, about his father Philip II, and it's just that there was a real respect. And if you don't know this, Philip II actually built a statue to the sacred band after they literally died to the person, because these were people that stood for the love for each other, that they would not back down for their love for each other. And what you have nowadays may not be the sacred band, but you have people like Zooey Zephyr, who is standing for the people that she loves. MAGA, Mama, have a good night. I appreciate you. Glad you got your shirt. I hope you like it. But Zoe's standing for the people that she loves. And, there's a deep respect for people, whether you're homosexual, whether you're LGBTQ. You don't have to be a part of their movement, but you do need to respect them, because standing up takes a lot of effort and courage. And to do that in a place like Montana, where they have a super majority, takes huge amounts of courage. This is much like the civil rights that African Americans had to go through, and they need allies. And hopefully they don't have to die to the person to get your respect. Hopefully there isn't going to be a statue for these people. Hopefully you're going to understand and you're going to respect what they had to stand up for and the courage that they had to put forth to do it, and recognize that they deserve equality. You don't have to be part of their movement, but you do have to respect it. So that was a sacred band. That story, when I read it the first time about Philip II, really, it stuck with me and always has, because it transcends gender or, sexuality. It's just human. It doesn't matter who you love. You're going to protect them to the last man. So, of course, we had to bring a Ben Shapiro video into this. I mean, why wouldn't we? And I thought this was a cool video to watch, because it's Neil Tyson on Ben Shapiro's show, and I really enjoy myself some Neil Tyson. And he's debating him on his thoughts of transgenderism. So once again, we'll let the video speak for itself.
It seems like the left is militating against the
Okay, first of all, I don't think militating is a word.
the advent of science. One of those areas is the area of transgenderism. The argument that is typically made by gender theorists is that gender is entirely separate from sex. You've seen the argument made that it makes no difference on average if men are stronger than women are, and that if we were to allow transgender women to compete with non-transgender women, then this would somehow not disadvantage biological women. And this seems to me absolutely ascientific, that if we're actually going to have a discussion about gender and sex, that should be based in data, which suggests that mammals are in fact binary in terms of their sex, unless you have intersex birth defects typically, or genetic defects.
I'm happy to opine on this. This only matters because today we segregate nearly all sports by gender. Otherwise, why do we even give a shit?
I love that. That's Neil Tyson has balls to do that too, and mind you, I think Neil Tyson could 100% take Ben Shapiro on a fight. So maybe he's not that scared, but he's correct. Why should you even give a shit? Because people like Ben Shapiro are eternally insecure. They'll never not be insecure, because they self-analyze their own bullshit so much that they find all the flaws in their own characters, and they're afraid that others will find them out too. And so instead, they talk about other people's flaws, so that way you never notice theirs. But unfortunately for Ben, we all see his flaws.
what someone identifies with. That we live in a free country, and with
Yes, we do.
consenting adults and people free expression of who and what they are.
I mean, on adult level, I agree with you. I think it does matter what you teach
That's
your
what I'm
children.
saying. And so there's the matrix of what you are biologically, how you express yourself, who you choose as a sexual partner. If we actually live in a free country, as we tell ourselves, people's freedom to behave in any of those ways should not concern you at all.
I mean, does it need to be said in any other way to be understood? Shabibo sure spends a lot of time thinking about what his ideal man is. Exactly, Unknown. I just had this post, if you guys saw my community post the other day, pretty much just asking that Christians treat people the way that supposedly Jesus did. And I had a really interesting conversation with a gentleman that went off on, transgenders and how this 1 + 1 = 3, and it just doesn't make sense, and it's a fad, and all of these things. And the gist of his argument was that Jesus was an intolerant bigot, and he was Christian. He was arguing for that, which was actually blew my mind for a second, because I've never actually had a Christian actually argue that, yes, Jesus was a bigot and he was intolerant. Usually there's a lot of defense there, and specifically all I'm asking in this post is that people just own up to being Jesus-like. If that's that's what your religion preaches, that you should be like Jesus, then be like Jesus, and do not judge, and feed the homeless, and hang with the lepers, take care of the sick, and he went further and further into this argument with me where he quoted scripture. I quoted the contradictory scripture in the Bible. And towards the end, he made the mistake of, I told him that as long as he kept it civil, I would not block him. And he made the mistake of telling me that I should go ahead and block him because that means he won, which just makes me, laugh. So I blocked him. Not because of his arguments, but because if you tell me to block you and you think that you win because I block you, that's dumb. So in doing that, though, I didn't read the rest of his post. Now, I get these posts in emails to myself. And so I opened the email the other day because I felt, hey, maybe I was a bit of a dick and maybe I should have looked at his post. And this is the little bit of information that I missed in this. And this is, at one point or another, this gentleman said, I said that he was homophobic because what he had said about homosexuals. And he said, no, I'm not homophobic. And I said, he said, I just disagree with homosexuality. And I said, no, that's like me saying I disagree with someone being African American. That would make me racist, not just disagreeing. And he said, no, in this final email that I saw, he said, no, I know that being gay is a choice because I'm gay. However, I do not agree with homosexuality because sleeping with men is against God's will. And that alone just said to me right then and there, there you go. There's the self-hate. That's what religion does. Here's a person who's probably lived in shame their whole life because their internal being, the very essence of who they are, conflicts with the religion and what it teaches them. And that's my point. Don't judge. Treat people well. Be like Jesus, if that's who you want to be. There's so many of these people that unfortunately have been brought up in families that have indoctrinated them. And exactly what Unknown is saying here. He spends a lot of time thinking about what his ideal man is. There's a lot of self-censure. There's a lot of self-hate that happens. And it's actually really sad, and I have a lot of empathy for that person. And I wish that there was something I could do to help them. But unfortunately, that person was too far gone. And I really do hope that they find a place for them that better helps them to be the person that they are inside. And it helps them show it on the outside as well. Anyways, I just wanted to say that because what you said there, Unknown, makes complete and total sense.
Nor are they requiring that you behave that way.
Well-
Okay? This is for their own freedoms because we live in a free country. Now, What is unresolved here is, what do you do with sports? It's unresolved. And I've followed that closely, and I don't see any meaningful solutions to come down off of that. We know that hormones manifest differently in different people, and just the whole thing with steroids. Steroids are hormones, right? And we rallied against steroids in.
Just look at Ben Shapiro. He's just like, He's like sitting in front of somebody that knows what the fuck they're talking about. You're not debating college kids right now, Ben. You're debating an astrophysicist. You're debating a person who's clearly thought out his position on this argument. Doesn't it suck?
Professional sports, because it gives you an undue advantage. So
yeah, I don't like the way their knees are almost touching their redunk. That shit would make me so uncomfortable. Back the fuck up.
And I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormones. I mean, this is thought I had. I don't know.
I think that's actually incredibly intelligent. And I think that I heard this from him on a Joe Rogan show a while ago. That's edited, put them both in a frame. They're not actually that close. Is that right? Have I been tricked? I have been tricked? Because they look extremely close. That looks super uncomfortable. I'm like, I can't move. I'm moving my knees around right now because I'm feeling so uncomfortable. His point, though, I believe he made this on I think it's the Joe Rogan show a long time ago, where it's like, maybe instead of defining male versus male or female versus female, you start defining people by their chromosomes. You know, it's XX versus XX, XY versus XY, XXY versus XXY. You know, like, sports is one of the only places that this ends in any type of controversy that really can be debatable, to be honest.
I don't know where it's going to land.
The WNBA won't be in business for very long if that's the case.
Well, first of all, Ben Shapiro doesn't know shit about sports. If you think there's not one female in the WNBA that couldn't play on a male team, then you're fucking dumb. I'm sorry. I played sports my entire life. I lift, I run, I do plenty of things that are athletic. And guess what? There's more than one or two girls out there that would kick my ass at any sport that I've played. And that goes for everybody. I'm sorry, but Brittany Griner would dunk on plenty of dudes in the NBA.
Okay.
It would just be you'd have to find some way to compete people against each other if you still care that sports is an interesting activity.
I guess the area where it does come up in a non-sports area.
Yeah, tell me, I don't know.
So it would be, you talk in your book about the education of children and teaching children about science. And right now...
He's so worked up. He is so worked up. He can't. He's like, I just wanted to say this the whole time.
Children are being taught about the quote-unquote gender spectrum, which is not scientifically based. That is a theory-based idea.
No, wait, hold on. People express themselves on a spectrum. So you learn that.
That's a social point, not a scientific point.
It's
meaning we express ourselves
hold on.
based in different languages. Is that something you teach in science class, or is that something that you teach when you're teaching language?
So whether the fact that people want to express themselves on a spectrum, on a gender spectrum, whether that fact is something you want to put in a sociology class or in a science class, maybe that remains to be determined. But
exactly. He's saying, like, you don't need to just say, we're not going to talk about it at all. And that's what Ben Shapiro wants to say. He wants to just say, no, just don't talk about it at all. And it's because he's scared of it. Because he's scared his kids are going to be like these kids that he's so fucking upset and obsessed with that he worries about it constantly. That's not how the world works, Ben. Your kids are going to be who your kids are going to be. They're going to be who they are through life experience. They're going to be who they are through meeting people and changing their viewpoints. You can't control it, big guy. You can't control it. And that's something you learn as a parent. is that you want so much for your children. You want to be lawyers. You want to be doctors. You want to be successful. Guess what? Your kids are going to be who your kids are going to be. And that's just life. And I'm going to be proud of my kids no matter who they are.
It is a real fact about real society.
Well, of course, nobody's denying that people identify how they want to identify.
So
The question is, what is the relationship of that to biology? Meaning that the argument is made that trans women are women, for example. And what that seems to mean is that trans women are identical to women. Now, if people want to say trans women are not biological women, obviously that is the case. But people don't seem to want to say that, although that is obviously scientifically true. Trans women are not biological women. Biological women are biological women.
But where are you going with this? What are you trying to accomplish by asking yourself, is it science or is it not science? It's people in society.
But this is a perfect example of an area where suddenly it doesn't matter to say things that are just true. Like, why is it bad or wrong to point out?
I have another way to approach this. I care what is objectively true in the world as a scientist. But let me not say even as a scientist. I just simply care what is objectively true. And science happens to be a pretty potent path to invoke, to find out what is true. And so if people express themselves on a gender spectrum, and that is an actual thing in an actual society, if we have not fully explained that scientifically, that's an interesting frontier to study.
Exactly.
If you want to say it's only sociological.
Here, Doc. Eventually one's going to lean in for a kiss. Dude, you know Ben's thinking about it. Look at him. Look at that face right now. He's so tense. He's so tense. Tyson's making a great point, and that is, how does it fucking affect you? It doesn't. It doesn't. This reminds me of how mad reporters make me. It's rare that the right questions are asked. Yeah, exactly. I mean, this could be a great discussion if you didn't have a person that had already made up their mind. And Ben Shapiro is not going to hear anything that Neil Tyson is going to say. He doesn't want to hear any of it. And he's not going to ask the right questions. He's only going to say, isn't this bad, though?
Then it's the purview of the social sciences. I don't care who studies it. It's an interesting fact about society that's worth learning about. To fight someone and say, it's not biological, it's just it's real and it's there.
Well,
because it's real because it manifests.
But it is real because it manifests. But the question of how to classify manifestation is a scientific question, meaning that, for example, there was a woman over at Brown University. Mm-hmm. She came out with a study that suggested that there was a phenomenon called rapid onset gender dysphoria, in which a member of a particular group would suffer from gender dysphoria, and this person's immediate peer group would suddenly have an onset of gender dysphoria. This paper was so controversial that Brown tried to pull it, and then was forced to reassign it later. You see this sort of treatment.
That's a different question. What you're asking now is, are there some topics that should not be studied scientifically?
Right.
And is there some taboo? And Sam Harris speaks a lot about this.
Yes.
And I think the concern is, if you study some topic that's a hot button topic and you bring scientific methods and tools to it, we don't trust, I'm interpreting here, I think we as a society don't trust that people in charge in a free country won't try to legislate something that will constrict people's freedoms in the face of that information. I think that's the fear.
Well, isn't that...
It's a fear.
I mean, and isn't that...
We don't trust our own ability to govern ourselves in the face of what could be some information relative to other kinds of information.
Isn't that a bit of a problem?
Yes. Yeah. It's not. It means it's not a free society. It's not a society of free inquiry, which I think you need ultimately. But yeah.
My general take on all of this stuff, from climate change to gender dysphoria to all of these issues, is bring out the...
What you just said there, Unknown, is exactly what I was thinking. I think he's misrepresenting the study. My guess is that one person voicing their gender made the others think about and maybe question their own gender. That's actually exactly what I was just thinking as well. It's it's a group think type of mentality, so that would make sense, and that is what human beings do. I imagine Ben is only thinking of his next point, not listening to a thing. Yeah, and we all do that in some way, but it's very important to think, right? Like when I'm talking to somebody and I'm voicing my opinion, generally I have a voice in my head that's kind of going, are you correct about that? Do you remember where you saw that? Is that true? And I'm literally questioning my own points of views and their validity. So if somebody else is talking to me and they're doing, I'm going to do the same to them. I'm going to question the validity. I'm going to ask myself whether or not they actually know where they got that information from. Do they just believe it's true, or do they know it's true empirically? And so the way I look at it when somebody is talking to me is that I want to take in as much of their information as possible, and at the same time, consider what my next question would be to maybe help them along to making me better understand their point of view on it. And I think that's the best way to listen, is to be open to a person's information, even if you disagree with it, and to attempt to at least understand as well as possible what they're trying to get across to you. So I do the same thing too. I'm always thinking about how I'm going to rebut things, and oftentimes I do interrupt people, and that's just not very, very helpful in a conversation. But I think we all do that. I just expect that if your job is to sit across from somebody and have an honest, good faith conversation, then you should acquire the skill of listening. And I don't think Ben Shapiro has ever acquired the skill of listening.
Science, and then let's hash it out. I think that the problem I'm seeing on a lot of sides
is, what is your motivation?
Why? Why does that matter?
It matters because if you have political power, you could end up creating legislation that subtracts freedoms from people who previously were enjoying the same freedoms as you. The history of that exercise.
Yeah, and to that point, just recently, Ben Shapiro, who's pro-Second Amendment and anti-red flag law, mentioned that maybe transgenders shouldn't have gun rights. Sound familiar?
Then make a better argument.
Doesn't end well.
Well, but the history of which exercise? Bring out all the science and let's hash it out.
I'm saying if you bring out all the science and the politicians hash it out, the history of that exercise is a recipe for disaster if it involves discoveries that put people's freedom as defined in our Constitution at risk.
But now you're arguing for limitations on areas of particular study.
No, I'm arguing on we need a way.
No, what he's saying is that politicians, so just like what he just said about misrepresenting the study, politicians are known for misrepresenting studies so they can legislate things in a manner that they choose. And I'm not saying left or right. I'm saying politicians. I'm saying they're going to misrepresent the studies to better suit their needs, to help to influence laws that they're being paid to make by corporations and donors. So he's correct. It's not the scientists doing the studies making the legislation. It's politicians with other reasons to make these laws are doing the legislating. It's not the scientists. You're not taking scientists that did the study and then they're going, okay, here's the law you should create based off of this. That's not who they are, and they wouldn't want to be those people. That's why they're not politicians. That's why they're scientists.
To shield, we need a way to protect people's freedoms in the face of whatever gets discovered scientifically.
Yeah.
So
I'll give it.
I agree. I think that's what the Constitution is for, is to guard rights from.
But we're always fighting people who want rights are always fighting others who are saying they don't get the rights from the Constitution. This is a daily challenge on the progressive left. It is a daily challenge, right? Here's an example. I forgot how I ended up getting this phone call. It was some magazine that serves the gay community. And I don't remember why, because they wanted my opinion on, there was some they wanted my opinion about whether being gay was biological or mental.
Right, there's that new study that came out, this vast
or
study.
Psychological.
Right,
okay?
right.
And I said, I don't care which it is.
It doesn't matter.
Find out what it is.
Say your anus.
Fine. But the answer to that question
That's funny.
should have no consequence on legislations or laws.
Yeah.
Because, for example, suppose it said it's purely biological, okay? Then you say, oh, that explains it. Suppose it says it's purely psychological. What are you going to do now? You say, well, now you're going to go to the reorientation camps or whatever those are called, where they realign you because they say it's psychological rather than biological. All of a sudden, people start behaving in ways in society that want to constrict the freedom of expression of who and what people are.
Yes.
And that is a danger.
Yes.
So maybe there needs to be a line in the sand. Let science do what it does, but politicians keep us free. Yet there's so many politicians that are doing the opposite of that.
So why aren't you a libertarian?
And that scares me.
I'm a libertarian. Come over here. Just
Okay.
The line is.
You want to know why he's not a libertarian? Because libertarians are full of shit. They're actually Republicans. I know that because I'm in a bunch of libertarian groups. Because libertarians, when it comes to being pro-choice or pro-life, all of a sudden don't give a shit about your liberties. All of a sudden, they're 100% for telling you that a woman's body is for them to determine what to do with. Not women, them, the libertarians. So that's why he's not a libertarian, Ben, he's not you. Who also tells women what to do with their bodies. Nathan, the study made an observation which was then assumed causation and ignored correlation. That's exactly what misinterpreted science becomes in the hands of politicians with an agenda. 1,000%, Nathan. 1,000%.
It's right here. Just join me over here.
Anyways, so I like that video because Jordan, bad. We're not doing that right now. I really like that video because you can see what happens when somebody that has a certain idea or agenda is confronted with a person that really you have to redunk. Did you click the three bubbles up top? The three dots, and then I think you have to click all chat. All chat. I think that's how you see. He can't see Nathan. What kind of moderator did I put in charge here? He can't even see the people that he's moderating. That's it. We're gonna issue a recall. What I was saying was you get to see finally somebody that is prepared for discourse. Oftentimes in Ben Shapiro's videos, he's debating college kids. And, I'm not saying that these kids aren't intelligent, but they're not ready because Ben Shapiro does this all the time. This is what he does. This is what his life revolves around. So when he finally has to sit in front of somebody that is actually well-educated in the subject, you can see that he doesn't really actually do well. He does not at all make points that don't, at the least, make him look selfish. Or, in my opinion, anti-libertarian. He really isn't as libertarian as he thinks he is. He's a Republican. There you go. Yeah, you changed top chat to live chat. Yep. All right, good job, Renee. Renee's the next moderator since she's teaching Redonk how to be the moderator. So that was that. The other two videos I have here are more for the fun of it. So I want to watch this No-Offense. First of all, I like the kid's name. It's the best dad joke of all time. No-Offense, okay? And this is a transgender man. Renee has answers and doesn't belittle me. I'm sorry, Redonk. I'm sorry. I'll be a better employer. So No-Offense here is a transgender person that's a young person and likes to have some humor involved in kind of explaining who transgenders are. And I just thought that the video really kind of spoke to me as not knowing much about what it takes to be a transgender person or what it's like to be a transgender person. And I thought I'd share the video because I thought it was actually really funny. I think that Noah is very charismatic and also has a very easy way about them in which they explain what being transgender is.
Watching this, you're probably, rightly so, really tired of transphobia at the moment, the level of transphobia that's going around. I feel the exact same, and I know my usual content of, making fun of transphobes, debunking transphobia. That's good, but I think today it would be fun to just look at some trans memes that are actually funny, because I'm sure when you think of trans memes...
And everybody knows I like memes, so... This was right up my alley.
A lot of the population will be like, ah, yes, trans memes like these. Which, it's the same tired joke that we've been dealing with since probably 2014, 2015. Today, I thought I would just show you some actually funny trans memes. And just before I do that, obviously, gotta remind you, I am on tour in America right now. Here are the dates. We got VIP options. You can have a great time and jump around with a bunch of gay people, a bunch of trans people, a bunch of people that aren't gay or trans, but also enjoy music. Tickets to that are in the description below. So, trans memes, let's go. You may have lost your virginity in high school, but I lost my gender identity. Seriously though, where is my gender? This one. I feel this one. I really feel this one. When I was a kid, growing up, watching all those Disney high school movies, I assumed that high school for me, I'd be... Bearing in mind, I was a girl growing up watching these videos, and for some reason, for whatever reason, I thought I would grow up to be like Troy Bolton. I really wanted to be Troy Bolton, and what did Troy Bolton have? He had a girlfriend, and he was popular, and he was the captain of the basketball. He was the captain of the basketball team. And then when I did get to high school, I was severely underwhelmed, because it did not go for me like it went for Troy Bolton. I relate to this one during high school, or like the equivalent of high school in the UK. I was also going through this. I was questioning a lot. For a little bit, I thought I was non-binary, and you know what? I don't know how well I thought I was non-binary. I think I was just worried that if I kind of admitted to myself that I was just a trans guy, that I was just a guy, that it would be a lot scarier. And for me it was. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, because obviously a lot of people are just non-binary. But I definitely relate to this one. I did feel very lost in high school. And then when I did figure myself out, I didn't feel lost, I just felt angry. So if you feel a little bit lost and angry in high school, don't worry. When you leave, it's so much better.
And this is actually something I tell my kids. I tell my kids all the time, school, I never had a good time with school. I grew up real rough. I grew up all over the state of California in the worst possible places you could live. And I never ended up being able to sit in one place and put down roots and enjoy the friendships that I think a lot of kids do get through school. And so when I got into high school and I wasn't exactly the best kid of all time and it was causing a lot of problems, I really relate to exactly what this young person is saying. Is high school is in some ways made out to be this fantasy of like it's the best years of your life. It's so much fun. It's so formative. Maybe when it was back in your day, Grandpa, but it definitely wasn't in mine. So I really like what this kid is saying. This is what I tell my kids. I say you just got to get through it, because you're gonna deal with these assholes in high school that are popular, that think that they're the shit. And guess what? 4 years of high school and then a couple of years of college, and then next thing you know, they're in the workforce, and guess what? Nobody gives a shit how popular you were in high school. Doesn't everyone feel lost and angry in high school? Exactly, Redonk, exactly.
I don't know why everybody tells people that high school are the best years of your life. They're absolutely not, and especially for LGBT people right now. What if you wanted to be flat, but your ribs said pain? This one,
and I didn't understand what this person was talking about when I first watched this video. And this was very educational for me, this part right here.
I feel this one so hard. I haven't worn a binder in years, and I'm incredibly grateful for that, and I'm very lucky that I was able to afford to get surgery. But Jesus Christ, the level of frustration when you're neurodivergent, and you're also trans, and you're also trying to be flat, it is the worst. Wearing a binder is a sensory nightmare, regardless if you're neurodivergent or not, but picture this. You're neurodivergent, sensory issues. Things taste weird, they smell weird. When you touch them, it's uncomfortable. When you wear clothes that don't fit the way you want them to, you're like this. Your body is just like this. Now imagine that, but you're trying to just, you don't need to imagine. I know why you're watching this. But absolutely, the rib pain was immense, and I, like so many other people, did not bind safely. I would bind all the time. I would sometimes sleep in my binder. I know I should be telling you, hey, don't do that. Bind safely. If it hurts, take it off.
So can you hear what this kid was going through? Can you have empathy for them as a person? Can you can you imagine someone like Ted Cruz or Marjorie Taylor Greene or any of these assholes in the Senate or the House actually feeling empathy for this young person that was already going through what most kids that don't experience what they're experiencing already have a hard time in? They're already having a hard time in high school, and then they're also going through all of this shit? Have some fucking empathy. Learn to feel what other people feel. Be a good fucking person.
Extra sports bras, try and flatten yourself with layers, all that kind of stuff. Absolutely, you should do that. I'm also aware that I did not do that. But I will say, from the other side, I definitely did some damage to myself. When I had top surgery and, I was all healed up, I tried exercising because, you should never exercise in a binder. So I was like, I just won't exercise when I was binding. I tried exercising and I realized that I wasn't fully breathing in and out in the way that I should be. My body was not taking in enough oxygen, and that's because I was wearing a binder for so many years that my body had just learned to breathe really shallow. So it's not fun. It's not a good experience.
And so if you also hear what they're saying that there's no education for them. So these people exist, but the tools they need to be successful in life, the tools they need to just be who they are, they currently don't exist because they have to hide who they are. And if they don't, they may be assaulted. They could be attacked. They could be, generally just not well liked. You're already in high school, a place where you don't feel well liked in the first place, and then you have all of this going on, and you have no education or assistance to help you as a young person understand what's going on with your body or what's going on with you mentally, and you're afraid to express it because if you do, that people may attack you for being who you are as a person. That's incredibly meaningful. High school ends up mostly meaningless. Yeah, high school does end up being meaningless. Is there? Yeah, and just the internet. The internet's there for you. Just the internet. My high school was cool when I first got there. It was all cliques around junior, senior year. Everyone was welcome and even invited, and we had people from about 30 plus countries. That's cool, unknown. I met some really cool people in high school. That is what I will say. I did not enjoy my high school experience, but I did have friends from high school that to this day I am in debt for life to.
If you're able to be comfortable without binding 24/7, please try and find ways to do that. So this is the kind of meme that I did not have growing up. At least I didn't see these. But there's a rise in gender envy, or people understanding what gender envy is. It's a thing. I get it. It's just, it wasn't a
I don't know what gender envy is because I'm not this person.
Term that I had when I was 15. And this meme, this is absolutely it. This is gender envy. Yeah, I just really love this male character. I want his gender. For me, at least growing up, it wasn't that I wanted his gender, although absolutely it was. I wanted to be Troy Bolton and I wanted to be a man. I think it was mostly confusing for me growing up because I knew I wanted to be a guy. I knew I wanted to grow up and have a flat chest and have a deep voice and have a girlfriend, even though I wasn't into girls, but I just wanted to be a boy and I knew that boys were into girls. It was very confusing. But this is a big thing because I looked up to so many men and I just wanted to be all of them for completely different reasons. I wanted to be Peter Parker. I wanted to be Peter Pan. I wanted to be Troy Bolton. I wanted to be Parker Cannon. I wanted to be Brendan Urie for a little bit. And that frustration, that kind of envy, I feel like people that aren't trans don't understand it maybe to the extent that trans people do. Because not only do I want to be you, I'm also really annoyed that physically I could never be you. Like, no amount of working out, like, you have a I don't. That really upset me. That just leads me onto this meme, which I'm just gonna have to blur out. But without the balls, it's just torture. I feel that. I mean, my bottom dysphoria was way worse when I was younger, and I think that's...
What? How can you not like this young person? How can you be so caught up in your own bullshit that you can't look at this person and just, I don't know, fucking enjoy them for who they are?
Because, not only did I have bottom dysphoria, I had chest dysphoria, I had voice dysphoria. My body fat was not redistributed into a male pattern like it is now that I'm on testosterone. There was so much that I was dysphoric about, but it was so much more intense before I transitioned. And I know it seems maybe pathetic to people that don't understand it. I would just cry about the fact that I didn't have and I would just get so frustrated. Like, I'd have meltdowns about it. I'd just sit in bed and be like, ah! So I get you, Shadow. Is that Shadow? It's not Knuckles. Happy Transgender Day of Visibility to all of you lovely people who are much more braver than I am. Other trans people today, me today.
And that's kind of actually sad. I mean, luckily today, in the society that we've progressed to, we're getting better. But look at that image. It's a fucking closet, man. Just for 1 second, picture that physically. You know, fuck the metaphor. Picture yourself physically hiding in a closet from the rest of society. Just think about that for a second. Think about being scared to open the closet door because outside there may be somebody that judges you so fucking harshly for yourself. That's a boudoir, not a closet. Shut up, Renee. Okay. Hiding in the boudoir, okay? And you're so scared to come out of it that there's going to be a bunch of people standing out there that will ridicule you and hate you for being who you are. That's fucking sad. And no kid, specifically kids that are not fully developed mentally, that are not fully aware of their own of who they should be confident in themselves, are hiding inside the boudoir, okay? And afraid to come out. If you just picture that for a second, that's incredibly sad.
In the closet. This is a thing that I have been thinking about recently. When I came out, I was called brave by people that I went to school with and people that were like family friends of my parents. Just about anybody that didn't really know any trans people, they just said that I was brave because I came out. And I do understand that because in the world that we're living in right now, it's not easy to be trans. But I don't think that if you're in the closet right now, that means you're not brave. And I don't think that means you're less brave than trans people that are out. In comparison to a lot of trans people, I had it ridiculously easy. Like my parents were always supportive. Even as a kid, I told my parents I wanted a boy haircut. I wanted to go to the boy section of H&M. And they were just like, sure. Just do whatever makes you feel happy. I think I just had it easier. And
imagine that. Your parents saying, do whatever makes you happy. Instead of being controlling Ben Shapiro. The only thing hiding in there is one of those thick hotel TVs and a Bible. All right, you guys got me on that one.
In that regard. So I don't think if you're in the closet right now that you're less brave. I just don't want that to be a thing that people think about themselves. Because like, you already have low self-confidence if you're in the closet. You don't need to beat yourself up about it. Why does everyone on Twitter come from this country? I like these memes. I can't even explain why I find this funny. It reminds me of the, hey, I'm lesbian. I thought you were American.
Hi, buddy. You want to say hi to everybody?
Yeah.
Say hi. This is my son, and I just want him to do everything he can to be happy. You good with that?
Yeah.
All right, get out of here. Gotta get you bothering me. All right, no playing Rock Band. I'm trying to do a live stream, bro. I know. Yeah, whatever, dude.
Kind of thing. Is another dysphoria meme. Puberty. Easy. Puberty again, but this time you're paying for it hard. Maybe a lot of people relate to that. I do not relate to this at all. The first puberty for me was the worst. The second puberty, I was like, hell yeah, where are my facial hairs? I'm still, where are they? Where are they? But like, I get it in some sense, because like, at least for me, I have, you know, I've got a weird body, I don't know what's up. Testosterone in me, estrogen in me, any hormone in me, anything, and me, I get a little bit funny. We've had to up and lower my testosterone dose, and it was too high, and then it was too low, and then we couldn't find a right place. I'm good now, but I guess I can kind of relate to the meme in that way. The first puberty, I didn't have to do anything, and I didn't want it. The second puberty, I had to do so much. I guess it was difficult. When you're passing in public, but then your mom calls you a she.
Oh.
Yeah. I get that one. I remember as a kid, my parents would always have to correct people because people would just assume I was a boy. Because as I said, like, I got a boy haircut and I wore boy clothes. And there are very distinct memories that I have about this. I remember going to London and going into an ice cream shop and the guy behind the bar was just like, oh, what would he want? And my parents had to be like, oh no, she's a girl. And there was this whole conversation about it where
And I want to point out something here. Remember when these right-wing, far right-wing people are selling you fear of transgenders, this is who they're selling you fear of, okay? And when they're saying transgender people can't take a joke, here's one making a lot of fucking jokes. Turns out they're actually pretty fucking funny people.
He's like, oh, but the hair. And they're like, yeah, no, I know. She's just like that. Like, the amount of conversations that were had about me and about my gender in front of me as a child It's kind of insane. I just have so many memories of that, and I think my absolute favorite one is we went on holiday when I was...
How old is this person? You can't ask me questions like that, Redonk. You know I can't answer that. I have no fucking idea. I'm an old, bald man. You can't ask me questions like that.
Maybe about 5. I think I had my 5th or 6th birthday there. I lost my first tooth there. It was a great time. And it was kind of a resort, I guess. There was like a swimming pool that was shared by a bunch of people that were also there. And I guess everybody had their own little flats. It was weird. But I made really good friends with the boy that lived next door for that holiday. And he knew my birth name. He knew the name that I was going by. But he looked at me and saw that I was wearing swimming shorts and had a boy haircut. And, you know, I was more masculine. I was like what people would consider a tomboy. He just assumed that I was a boy. Like, this entire week that we were there, he was calling me he to his mum and to me and to other people. And I remember we'd go around, like, squishing ants. And at the end of the holiday, my parents came to go say goodbye to his parents and be like, oh, I'm so glad that they got on so well. Like, they had a really good time together. My mum was like, yeah, she had a great time. And I just remember this kid being like, what? She? And then we just left. So did I catfish?
It's getting weirder and weirder.
Is that catfishing? I don't know. Anyway, what was the meaning? Yes, when you're passing in public, but then your mum calls you a shit. It was funny as a kid, but as I got older, it was more distressing. Before I came out to my mum and that happened, because I still looked like a little boy, even though I was in high school. It was... I've had a weird life. I like this one. I don't relate to it, but I like it.
I've had a weird life too. It's all good. Being straight, being gay, being straight.
Straight as a boy. No. Being gay as a boy. No. Being straight as a girl. Yes. This is interesting. I don't relate in terms of straightness because I started out straight and then I didn't go gay as a girl. I came out as a boy, and at that point I thought I only liked guys. So I went from being a straight girl to a gay boy, which big change, and that was why it was so...
Not gonna lie, I'm so fucking confused at this point.
frustrating that people assumed I was a lesbian, because I was like, not only am I not a girl, I also am not attracted to girls in the slightest, so you could not have been more wrong. Turns out, I do like girls, and I was just really scared of boobies, because I had them myself, and they made me so upset and traumatized. I feel like this is maybe something that the majority of trans people experience, where their sexuality is not very straightforward, excuse the pun. It's not very straightforward, and it's very difficult to know where you stand in society, and where you stand within specific communities. Growing up as a lesbian, and then coming out as a trans man, it must be a very interesting intersect of, like, the lesbian community that you're part of. Because, like, you grew up being a girl that liked girls, and that was an identity, and now all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, no, I was wrong, and now I'm not lesbian. It's very confusing, and I understand why cis people are confused by it. I get that. But
Thank you. He said it. He said that he understands why I'm confused, and I feel validated. Noah, you're my fucking hero.
Trans people, you know, we have a lot going on. Walking over to the boys' line when told to do so in gym class. Staying in the girls' line until the teacher threatens you with detention. This is where I think people are more brave than me, because I am not brave in the slightest when it comes to anything in this regard. I know a bunch of friends that did this, and hell yeah, you are very strong-willed. If I did this at my school, I think I would not survive. I think I would actually die. And not because people would hate crime me, I'm sure they would, but I would just be too embarrassed.
The way he said that. I'm sure they would. Oh, shit. I'm not sure if I'm a bigot or I'm... shit, I'm dying. I'm not sure if I'm a bigot or I'm just uninterested in other people's social lives. Redonk, that makes you actually the opposite of a bigot. A bigot is somebody that actually, like, is intensely interested in what other people are doing with their lives and judgmental about it. So I'm just like, fuck it. Yeah, exactly. That's my main point with the majority of everything I say, is if it's not affecting you, and stop making up shit like Ben Shapiro does to make it seem like it's affecting you. It's not. Ben Shapiro's kids aren't being groomed to be transgendered. They're probably fucking homeschooled. Let's be honest.
That'd be so embarrassing. And, you know, I wasn't out in school, so I guess it wouldn't have made sense, but I guess I did try this a few times when I was younger, but it wasn't in this context. It was like, again, growing up, I looked like a little boy, and I played rugby with the boys. Like, I played boy sports. Up until the age of 12, where there's a cut-off that the government tells you that you're not allowed to play with boys anymore, even though you're stronger and smarter and faster and taller than them when you're 12. But I remember hitting age 12 and being told that I couldn't play sports with the boys anymore, and I guess I kind of did something similar to...
Oh, that makes sense because girls grow so much faster earlier. Dude, that's something I never thought about. Like a 12-year-old girl could dominate boys basketball.
This, I was just like, why? I'm stronger than them. I definitely didn't have it easy, and everybody's situation is different. I have a lot of respect for trans kids growing up in high school right now. Because when I was in high school, obviously there was like the anti-trans memes, there was the Apache helicopter jokes, and obviously there was transphobia, but I feel like the level of transphobia that we have right now, the amount of shit in the media about trans people, that would be so terrifying and scary to grow up in school while that was all going on, while also being out as trans. So like, if that's you, in this situation, I understand that's probably very difficult. I hope you're doing good. US government, stop being trans. Trans people. You know what? I'm gonna start being trans even harder. This, I can relate to, you know?
That shit is so true.
I'm not from America, but I toured there last year. I'm touring there currently, right now, this year, and the amount of anti-trans legislations that are just going through, not great, but I do relate to this.
I think the Apache hello meme was meant to offend people. I mean, yeah, I laughed at it too. They laughed at it as well. But I think the big problem is that the intent of what it was. You know, is if you're, it's like any joke, man. Like, you can make a joke and it just be funny, or you can make a joke and it just be insulting. And it's really all based off of intent. Most of the gay dudes that I knew growing up said some of the worst gay jokes you ever heard in your life, but they were meant as jokes. And then all the white pride skinheads, Arquades, which is an anti-gay gang, when they said jokes about gay people, you fully understood that they were trying to be insulting. It's all about intent. Yeah, you can't stop making things in a joke. That's what I'm saying. You can make jokes, but you can't be an asshole. Like, there's two things there. And, well, taking the most serious side and turning on its head is the best. Yeah, but the question is your intent. Once again, if you're making a meme because it's funny and you're trying to be funny and amuse people, that's fine. But if your sole intent, and there are people that do this, like I said, there's literally a fucking gang that hates gay people called Arquades. You are just being insulting and it isn't funny. So there's plenty of transgender people that are, I'm sure, 100% okay with jokes like the Apache helicopter. Yeah, I laughed at it too. Yeah, and you're a quarter Apache. Unknown, that makes it even funnier. But it's about intent, goddammit. That's what matters. We can make jokes. I don't want to, at any point in my life, feel like I have to go down and perform a secret knock to go into a comedy club to hear the dirty jokes. Like, I'm with you on that. And I think that this person would be too. This Noah person seems like a very intelligent, very funny person. I bet you there's plenty of shit that they'd laugh at that you wouldn't think they would. But the problem with that are the actual bigots of our society. Like I said, anybody that says these people don't exist, fuck off. I know they do. I grew up with them. I grew up with a fucking ton of them, and I punched a bunch of them in the face. I'm probably not supposed to say that. What I'm saying is unfortunately, those people ruin it for the rest of us. Those of us who just want to laugh and have a good time, we get it ruined for us by the people that are just assholes. That's the gist of it.
This one. I really do relate to this one. I've had a very interesting journey and relationship with...
I'm going to go to the last video here. If you like Noah, and I like Noah, you should give some of his videos a like. I mean, he don't really need it. He's got 868K followers. He's whooping my ass by a long shot. But if you like it, go get this kid. I'm a kid again. I don't know how old they are. I have no idea. I don't know how. I can't. People shouldn't ask me if I know what their age is. I'm really bad. But go give them a like. Support them. Not because they're trans, but because they're human and they're fucking hilarious. So support that person. The last thing I want to watch, and this is the one that we can only watch small clips here. Do you want to see Jordan Klepper? There's no Jordan Klepper. Okay. Okay, I'm not just a Jordan Klepper channel, guys. God damn it. We're going to watch a Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on transgender rights that was released about 6 months ago. However, I also see that you guys are about to get an ad. I'm really sorry. Kermit the Frog here. I've been beaten by girls in wrestling meets and martial arts tournaments. Yeah, dude. Yeah. I'm sorry, but there are some girls out there that kick the shit out of me, dude. Both my sisters are mean, dude. My sister's been to prison, okay? Like, that's what I grew up with. Those girls are tough. I grew up with a single mom and two mean-ass sisters. So, I've got a lot more respect for females and what they can do out there than anybody else can. Is it? Oh, you want me to put on Jordan Peterson? No. I can't go that route, dude. No, thank you. I'm good on that. However, if you guys want to watch it, and I will bring up a video of Jordan Peterson with Matt Dillahunty maybe next Monday, where they debate religion. I greatly enjoyed. If you don't know who Matt Dillahunty is, you should look Matt Dillahunty up. Absolutely amazing. I had the clip queued. No, it fucking literally hopped to that shit and was about to play it, and I was like, Jesus Christ, I'll be back in YouTube jail. I can't do that right now. I'm still on probation. I'm pretty sure part of my probation is no showing Jordan Peterson clips, dude. That's got to be up there somewhere. Instead, we're going to go with something a lot more palatable, and that is going to be Mr. John Oliver on Last Week Tonight talking about transgender's right, number 2.
Moving on.
All right. Well, that's it. I hope you guys learned some stuff. I learned some stuff. I think that we just all need to do a better job of being better people. I really do. I think that'd make a big difference. I think we need to stop selling fear. I think we need to get back to being hopeful and excited about the future, because every one of these kids deserves your support. Every one of these kids deserves to be given a chance to be the best, most productive human being that they possibly can. And the people standing in the way of these people are people that one day will no longer inhibit the progress of the youth, because they will no longer exist. So I appreciate you guys watching. If you want to support a soulless ginger, become a member. For the low price of $3 a month, you can use my stickers, and you can support a starving ginger kid. I'm actually not starving. I have plenty of food, I think. But I think thank you guys. Thank you for Redonk for being here to moderate again. Never really need it, but just in case, you never know. Thank you guys. Thank you guys once again. I love you guys. I hope you guys learned something. I know I learned a lot about it. So I appreciate you guys. And I'll see you next Monday at 6 o'clock. All right, guys. Have a good one.